This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Welcome to This Week in Connecticut. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dennis House. Today, we will take you inside one of Connecticut's biggest and oldest employers. Also back from the misery of Ukraine and heartbreak in Poland, we're joined by a local businessman who's responding to his success by giving back. Plus, after losing 16 elections in a row, can Republicans flip a solid Democratic position? And a new book about the Hartford Whalers.
You could see it in their faces, the anxiety and the stress, and you could see them trying to hide their tears from their kids. But that daily reminder of, giving that person their meal and seeing the smile on their face, it's very, not as helping them, but it rewards you back and it helps you kind of get through the day.
Do you expect to go back at all?
Yeah, it's one of the largest property casualty insurance companies in the world. We're really proud, and this is our 125th anniversary of that first policy written in 1897.
What is the connection between Connecticut, Hartford, and the Travelers?
I've spent my entire career litigating and advocating for people, and I think that Attorney General Tong is an activist. We don't need an activist. 16
elections in a row the Republicans have lost, dating back, last time they won was in 1954. What makes you think you can snap that?
It's my curse as a sports fan to root for a team that doesn't exist anymore.
What did you learn most about the Whalers by writing this book? First up on This Week, the lead. More than a month after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, more than 4 million people have left their homeland. Russia's attacks in the country have slowed down a bit, but the NATO Secretary General says Russia is not withdrawing, but rather repositioning. Red Cross and other aid organizations are using the lull to open evacuation routes for civilians. In the meantime, the U.S. is trying to address the high price of oil. Right now, there is a gas tax holiday in effect here in Connecticut. Governor Lamont signed emergency legislation that suspends the 25-cent per gallon tax through June 30th. At the federal level, President Biden announced an order to release oil from the U.S. reserves.
Our prices are rising because of Putin's action. There isn't enough supply. And the bottom line is, if we want lower gas prices, we need to have more oil supply right now. I'm authorizing the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months, over 180 million barrels for the from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is a wartime bridge to increase oil supply until production ramps up later this year. And it is by far the largest release of our national reserve in our history.
Congress is also working on legislation that would further reduce the price at the pump. It includes a plan to impose financial penalties on oil and gas companies that lease public lands but are not producing. Now, the king of Connecticut barbecue is back home after volunteering his time in Poland and Ukraine. The cold, homeless, and hungry were served warm meals by chefs from all over the world, including the CEO of Bear's Smokehouse, with locations in Hartford, New Haven, and the suburbs. In the hours and days after Russia invaded Ukraine, the images of devastation and desperation were all over television and social media.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved, because I saw it and it was just like, I have to do something.
Jamie McDonald, who made a name for himself by creating the Bear's Smokehouse brand, jumped on a plane and flew to Poland. How did it change you as a person?
It was definitely life-changing. I've done similar things like through Operation Barbecue Relief, where we've gone down and fed like the people that had the flooding in West Virginia or like the hurricane that went through Miami. But this was a man-made disaster, and to see that suffering firsthand. I mean, you see it on the news. Everybody saw it on the news.
McDonald volunteered with the World Central Kitchen, a charity which feeds victims of humanitarian, climate, and community disasters. He helped feed thousands of people by making a variety of items like stews, borscht, hot chocolate, even banana bread.
But that daily reminder of, giving that person their meal and seeing the smile on their face, it's very, not as helping them, but it rewards you back and it helps you kind of get through the day. But you see a lot of sad stuff and just a lot of struggles. So you could see it in their faces, the anxiety and the stress, and you could see them trying to hide their tears from their kids. So it's very sad.
McDonald told me the worst moment for him was when he witnessed the death of an elderly Ukrainian refugee. So what was the worst thing you saw over there?
The worst thing, I mean, altogether, it was, you know, just the amount of women and children and elderly every day, and you just imagine just the trauma they're going through. But the worst thing I saw was at the train station one day, an elderly man passed away. His wife was there crying, and of course you don't want to intrude upon them, but later in the day I asked the local police officers, you know, what had occurred, and they had said that he had made the trip, he had cancer, and made the trip even though his doctors told him, you know, you can't leave because, you know, you won't make it. But he was so concerned about his wife's safety, he pushed himself to do it, and he crossed the border and he passed away.
McDonald doesn't see an end to the misery anytime soon and tells me he is ready to serve again and again.
So you guys need me to come back, I'll be back.
Well, on behalf of everyone in Connecticut, we thank you for what you did.
Thank you.
It was an inspiring story.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, one of Connecticut's biggest employers is right in a majestic skyscraper right there that you can see clearly from our vantage point at our Hartford newsroom. We're talking about the Travelers. It's a company that's been around since the Civil War. Today, we take you inside a corporate giant that you may not know much about. So what is the Travelers? If someone said to you, describe the company to me, what is it? Most of us know the Travelers from the familiar red umbrella logo, or the tower that's been a fixture in the Hartford skyline for more than a century, or the golf tournament that bears its name. Perhaps a relative or a friend is among the 7,000 Travelers employees in Hartford. But what exactly is the Travelers?
It's one of the largest property casualty insurance companies in the world, and we were founded back in 1864, right? And so we've been around for a long time. We've done a lot of things.
The Travelers was created way back when Abraham Lincoln was president. The goal to insure people as they traveled, eventually adding horses, buggies, and that new invention, the automobile, to their portfolio. At the turn of the 19th century into the 20th, Americans were traveling like never before. Driving in traffic were new phenomena, and so were accidents. The insurance industry took off, and Hartford became the insurance capital of the world. Andy Bissett is the Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer of the Travelers.
When Battison first started the company, I think he was, the very, very first policy was somebody traveling home for lunch. And it was like a travel insurance policy. That's how it started. And from there it evolved, and over a number of years, up till 1897, we're still talking a long time ago, was the first auto policy ever written, and that was Travelers. And so, we're really proud, and this is our 125th anniversary of that first policy written in 1897. So it's part of the place. It's who we are. Some of the interesting elements of that is that we were underwriting insurance 11 years before Henry Ford started selling Model Ts. So we've been at this a long, long time.
As the Travelers grew, it needed a new headquarters. So at the end of World War I, construction of the iconic tower began. When it opened, it was the 7th tallest building in the world. One of the early designs actually called for twin towers. Let's talk about this tower. It's been here over 100 years. It's symbolic. At one time, it was one of the biggest skyscrapers in the country.
Yeah, it was actually the tallest in the country. And we put a lot of money over the past decade. We've put tens of millions of dollars into making sure that the tower is renovated, looking great, being cleaned. We had to put some work into the caulking between the stones. We had to replace some stones. We put all energy efficient windows in the facility in the tower. It's great. I mean, it's just like a brand new building now.
Bissett took us to the observation deck, where you can see as far south as New Haven and as far north as Mount Tom in Massachusetts. We gave a big wave to our teammates across Adrian's Landing in the News 8 Hartford newsroom. Is it tough to maintain something this old?
Yeah, something always breaks, just like human beings. As you get older, things break, and so you have to maintain them.
The Travelers complex is starting to fill up with workers again after the pandemic, and those returning now have a new cafeteria and lots of red umbrellas in the decor. Let's talk a little bit about that umbrella behind you, because it really is an iconic logo. And there are companies that spend millions to try to get marketing and logos and just can't get it right.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you when you see it?
You know, it's who we are. It's protection, right? And we're there for our insureds when they're having a bad day, and we're there for good days, but we're there for bad days to help them as we can, and it's protection, right? When you go out in the rain, what's the first thing you reach for? I hope so.
Rain is something the Travelers doesn't like to see in June, when its namesake PGA event brings the world's best golfers and thousands of fans to Connecticut. During our visit to the Tower, we ran into tournament director Nathan Grube. And in terms of what does the Travelers Championship mean for Hartford and Connecticut? Because it does show off the city, it shows off the state.
It does. I think when people look at it, I know we've talked about it, pride is the first thing that comes to my mind, but what I think that means is I think the city and the region sees what it's capable of. And what I mean by that is this. We are an amazing city. You know, we're in between Boston and New York. There's a lot of different things that people talk about at Hartford. But when you see the Travelers Championship, and when you see it broadcast to hundreds of countries, millions of people, and it's broadcast in the light of, oh my gosh, look how amazing that event is, I think our region says, yes, that's what we're capable of doing, you know? And that message that it sends to NFL teams, soccer teams, baseball teams, like you look, I mean, owners look at that and go, wow, that community can really put something on.
Grube and Bissett both tell me community is what the Travelers is all about. The company has invested and donated millions in Connecticut, and they want to make Hartford the place to be.
Yeah, I do. I've been serving on the board of CRDA, who has been the developer of all of this housing in downtown Hartford, and it's been tremendous. I mean, and I do believe that young professionals want to live closer to where they work, and they may or may not have cars, but they want to be downtown, and we've built thousands, 5,000, 6,000 new apartment units over the last 7, 8 years in downtown. And some of our people are living in them. Some of them for the other companies downtown are living here. And you can see it downtown. And when UConn's campus came here a couple of blocks away, all of a sudden you've got young students walking around town, which is great. It just revitalizes the downtown.
That's the Travelers. Still to come, Attorney General William Tong facing a Republican opponent this election season, why she says she is the one for the job. Later, a new tale of the whale. We talked to the author of a new book about the Hartford Whalers.